Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the 1,775 poems of Emily Dickinson contained within the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 89, Some Things That Fly There Be. In 1890, when this poem was originally published, by the way, it was actually published with the title, The Secret. So you may want to jot that down to start with this poem and ask, why would this poem be titled The Secret? Now here we have another riddle poem, all right, about the challenges of, I'm going to argue, the challenges of creativity, although there is always going to be this ability to read Emily's poetry on a number of levels, no doubt. Now our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, again, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already been exposed to our introductory set of comments, as well as our preceding 88 poems. We just finished with poem 88, As by the Dead We Love. Now, the great biographer, Wisher, has said about Emily that she recognized, I love his language here, she recognized the doubleness, is his word, in her reading of life. I love that idea. We've already commented on the fact that Emily loves mystery. She loves the questions of existence. What she often referred to apparently as the flood subject, the question of what happens after this, like whatever this is, whatever happens in death, what happens beyond death. Well, these were always going to be questions for Emily that drove a whole lot of what it is that she's concerned with. Let's just enjoy the poem now and notice its construction, the trinities of Emily's poetry, as we've commented on so many times. Some things that fly there be, birds, hours, the bumblebee, of these no elegy. Some things that stay there be, grief, hills, eternity, nor this behooveth me. There are that resting rise. Can I expound the skies? How still the riddle lies. Now, I love the economy of language, and we've pointed this out so many times in our study of Emily, how she can say so much with so little. Notice that her first stanza will posit the things that fly. And then, of course, two of those things, birds and bumblebees, are obviously easy. But then she'll throw into the middle of that the word hours, and there's her humor. I love Emily's humor. Some people have said to me, Emily's such a downer poet. And I'm like, no, you're completely misreading Emily if that's your view. I mean, yeah, she has some moments in her poetry where she's clearly dealing with the lugubriousness of life, no question. But for example here, there's such joy in this that she'll throw out, hours fly by. Notice what she's really saying here is, I will write no elegy, she would argue, for the passing things, the things that go away, that fly by. Then, notice the same construction, some things that stay there be. And then notice, hills will be, obviously, the easy one for us. I mean, we think about, for example, where we live, Cloud Peak. It was there 1,000 years ago. It will be there 1,000 years from now. And there's something to be said about the steadfastness of that hill. But notice here, in between the two words is the word hills. And then on either side, notice, what is it that lasts? Well, grief and eternity, right? Now, we've commented on her already use of the word eternity. And she says here, I'm not going to feel compelled to write about those things either. That is to say, the things that stay. It's almost as if I don't want to write about grief, and eternity is just too crazy an idea. Then the third stanza, she resolves it. There are that resting rise. Now, this is, of course, the riddle of resurrection for Emily. Can I expound the skies? Go back to poem 76 to remember what she was talking about, the divine intoxication of the first league out from land. I think there's a whole lot of that going on here. In other words, how can I talk, how can I write about the skies, right? It's impossible, the firmament, if you will. And then she'll finish with how still the riddle lies. Now, I have commented that when I gave my series of talks that we call Talks with Walt, all of our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, I said that I believe T.S. Eliot learned how to use the word still from Walt Whitman and from his study of Emily Dickinson. Of course, the word still is a compelling word, right, in so many ways. How still the riddle lies. Of course, still here can be perpetuating, right? It's like, and as well, the idea that there's no movement to be still, right? Now, her use of the word riddle will obviously take us back to poem 50. She will use this word riddle in several of her poems. In poem 29 and as well as 949, she'll use this word riddle. I love her use of the word riddle in 501. This world is not conclusion. A species stands beyond, invisible as music, but positive as sound. It beckons and it baffles. Philosophy, don't know. And through a riddle at the last, sagacity must go. And as well, I love it in her use of the word riddle in poem 949. But I want to go to poem 1222. The riddle we can guess, we speedily despise, nor anything is stale so long as yesterday's surprise. This notion of always being shocked, right? Now in poem 313, she will say that faith bleats to understand. There actually is another rendering of that word bleats as faints, and I really actually like that rendering even better. Faith faints to understand. No question that this idea of stillness in the middle of the riddle is, I think, what T.S. Eliot was getting at when he played the game in East Coker. We must be still and still moving into another intensity. How are we going to qualify now this set of lines at 3a? Well, I think the argument she's making is that some things, like eternity, like the question of post-death, what happens in afterlife, is a mystery. It's an enigma, and there's no real way to be able to write too much about it. At 2b, I love the word choice of still, right? For example, the English word still carries with it two different understandings. For example, hey, I need you to be still. That is to say, movement, don't move. But at the same time, we can say I'm still in this room, which has something to do with duration, which almost seems to have something to do with movement. Again, T.S. Eliot's line, we must be still and still moving, from East Coker comes to mind. Now, there's been some interesting ideas that have been expounded by a couple of scholars that I find remarkable. David Porter, will comment it this way. The quest, quote, the quest of the speaker's mind for reconciliation of the paradoxes in nature and in the mind. The process of mind in its perpetual effort to reconcile and to unify, to bring to acceptable terms the perception of things that fly and things that stay, are all part of this set of lines. I also like what Anthony Hite has to say about the riddle poems. Notice here, quote, the last line is a riddle all by itself of this poem, and may refer either to the soul or to God. In either case, it seems to insist that the living are denied any sure sign of their salvation, and therefore this seems to, the one reading of this poem is a bit of skepticism on the part of Emily. I'm leaving it to you guys to decide how you want to read this. Hey, do you remember another at 3A observation? Do you remember when we did Ode on a Grecian Urn, John Keats' classic? We've done the full lecture at learnstrong.net. Do you remember that he says, calls the work of art, the urn, cold pastoral, it doth tease us out of thought as doth eternity. This idea that there are certain things like great art that will elicit from us a certain level of awe, and that leads us obviously to 3b. What for you are the great mysteries of your life? And is there any way that Emily is helping you to come to those mysteries and live alongside those mysteries? I hope so. Thank you.